There are fewer than 10 antebellum homes remaining in Jackson County, and certainly one of the reasons is the ferocity of the Civil War itself here. It's unique that this county has so few homes dating from that period. We're at the home of Archibald Rice, who built this house in 1844. The house is of Gothic Revival style, very typical of rural homes of the period. Archibald was born in 1782 in Caswell County, North Carolina. And when Missouri became a state in 1821, he and lots of others sought cheap land on the frontier. So he brought his family to Missouri along with his troop of enslaved individuals. Archibald came with his third wife, Sally, and 10 children. Then they discovered that this area of land, which is now the city of Raytown, Missouri, had not been surveyed in the statehood survey of 1821. So there was no legal description for it to be sold. So it opened it to squatters. So Archibald left his oldest son, William, with the property in Eastern Jack, brought the rest of the family here to what is now Raytown, and he and his next son, Coffee, each claimed 160 acres straddling the Santa Fe Road right here. So the Rices then, prospered here with a large corn plantation. They were able to help outfit traders and travelers who were headed to the west. Well, we know that this was a popular camping area in the early stages of the trail. It's a half a day's wagon ride out of Independence, which was a rip-roaring, wide-open, crazy frontier town at the time. This would have been a quiet neighborhood to get yourself together, learn how to drive a wagon if you had to, buy your animals, and get ready to go west. At one point, there were hundreds of folks staged in this area heading west. Again, they didn't have legal title to it, but they did improve it. They put fences, they grew crops. In 1844, they got legal title to the property, and that's when they were able to build the permanent frame house. They had been in log cabins prior to that time. This is the cabin of Sophia White. She was the enslaved servant of Archibald and Sally Rice. She lived in this cabin from 1850 until 1895. The year before her death, her last year, she was being taken care of in the larger house. Well, Archibald Rice and his family were from North Carolina. They were a slaveholding family who immigrated to Missouri. The Rices were among the largest slaveholding families in the area at the time, and that contributed to their success as a plantation owner. In 1848, there was a terrible cholera outbreak all along here. The Rices lost 2 of their daughters in 1848. It's quite possibly that was to cholera. Archibald had 9 children remaining with him, and on his death in 1849, he willed each of his slaves to each of his children. So it's sort of a sobering message for us today. So they settled here in the early 1830s, continued to live here up to the Civil War when they evacuated to Texas. I have to remind my Virginia relatives that there was a war on the western frontier, and that it was quite disruptive, especially in Jackson County after the Lawrence Massacre by the Southern Quantrell and his raiders. The Union commander here in the area issued General Order Number 11, stating that the county would be depopulated, that people would have to move to Kansas for the duration of the hostilities, and if you didn't want to do that, then just get out. So most of the southern-leaning families around here just got out. The Rice families had gotten out 4 years earlier, and they had evacuated to Texas in 1861 to avoid all the border violence. Their caretaker family, the Hunters, were evicted, did go to Clay County, but so many of those homes and barns got burned. It was known as the Burnt District for a good 10 years after the Civil War because of all of the burnt foundation and chimneys that were scattered around the community. After the war, most of the slaves had been dispersed at that time. Sophia stayed with the family as a paid employee, still living in the cabin. Sophia accumulated a small nest egg of cash. After her death, she actually willed her remaining cash to one of Coffee's daughters. Sophia is buried in Woodlawn Cemetery. near the rest of the Rice family. There was a Mrs. Thurman whose grandfather befriended Sophie in the late 19th century. Apparently she would sit out in a rocking chair and she would regale him with stories when she was a young woman, when she could see nothing but covered wagons, she said, going from one horizon to the other, right past her front door here in this cabin. So we talked a lot about the Rice family that settled here first, but two other families made significant contributions to this property. In the 1920s, the property was purchased by Judge Joseph Lowe. He was a magistrate judge in Plattsburgh. He was very fascinated with the Western movement. He founded the National Old Trails Association to commemorate the trails, and his older son, Roger, and his family moved into the place, and they farmed here as gentlemen farmers, I guess you'd say, for about 15 years. Added on to the house, added a kitchen. They moved to a larger farm in Lee Summit in the early 1930s. For a while, it became a country inn where you could get a chicken dinner. That didn't last long. The property was purchased by Luigi Giuseppe Tremonti in 1935. He was an immigrant from Sicily who immigrated to America through the port of New Orleans in 1903, worked his way north, got a medical degree in Arkansas. In Kansas City, he met his wife, Gloria, who was from Butler, Missouri. She became his nurse receptionist. They purchased the place knowing its history. He practiced medicine in the lower parlor down here, what we have fixed up as a parlor today. They did a major alteration and enlargement on the house. They put in the 2 side dormers in front and the 4 in the back to bring in light upstairs. Her clothes, she was, like I say, she was a fashion plate. She was a regular customer down on Petticoat Lane. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the Wolf Brothers, and there's Hartsfeld's.
The old Kansas City Garment District.
Mrs. Tremonti would sometimes patrol the border, the property line with a couple of Mastiff dogs and a shotgun. She's been known to get the Kansas City Power lineman on the ground and come and have the police department or the sheriff's department at the time come slap her wrist and tell her not to do that anymore. And actually in 1971, you can hear Blue Ridge Boulevard out here. It was a two-lane street at the time, and they widened it to 4 lanes, and they had to take out the slave-built wall that bordered the property on that side. And she made the newspapers that day when she tried to block the bulldozers from doing that.
She was living in Kansas City proper during Prohibition. That was not.
Yeah, sure.
That was not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. So some of her sewing patterns and stuff.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Oh, old Vogue sewing patterns. Yeah. Wow, look at that.
Dr. Tremonti passed away in 1949. Then Mrs. Tremonti was here for nearly 40 years by herself. And she really didn't have the wherewithal to keep it maintained properly. It kind of fell down and grew up around her. And a lot of folks thought it was ready for the wrecking ball, but that's when the Friends of the Rice-Tremonti stepped in, and you can see the results today. In 1988, the Friends of Rice-Tremonti were formed. There was a core group of very concerned citizens here and knew the historical significance of this place. Mrs. Tremonti, the last resident of the property, was again well aware of its history and wanted it to be preserved. We took on a $300,000 mortgage back in 1988, and people in the community gave us no chance of success. We got no help from the city government. Just a few dedicated volunteers. We struggled with that loan, but it was a 10-year mortgage. 12 years into that mortgage, we still hadn't touched the principal, but the state of Missouri came to our rescue. The state issued a grant to purchase the property. We deeded it over to the city of Raytown. That gave us a chance to really get started on the restoration of the place. The original beams here, you can see the saw blade cuts on it. We've been working diligently to shore up the place. We first shored up the foundation, furnished the rooms with antiques, appropriate to the period of time. We have a few items that we can trace back to the families, but we try to evoke the area of the late 19th century, also the early 20th century, because this house has been occupied non-stop from 1836 until 1988.
This was an aerial photo, you said, in 1930?
Estimated by 1932. A trail marker.
Yep.
Then you can see the back 3 is just planted as an orchard. Those are the cherry trees. Lowe founded the National Old Trails Association, and he's the one who convinced the Daughters of the American Revolution to put up those red granite markers.